You're enjoying Racing World. It's brought to you by Perspective Group. It's your global motorsport podcast show brought to you in conjunction with Race Control Magazine.
Well, welcome to another edition of Racing World. Sorry for no show last week. There seems to be this thing that when you get fibre installed into your home and your office and everything, you don't have access to the internet, so hence no show last week. But we're back this week and we've got plenty to talk about, that's for sure. And it's the month of May, so it's not long now to the running of that great race, the Indy 500. But firstly, let's deal with local scene, and of course a big shout out once again to the team at velocitynews.co.nz. Mark and Zane at Velocity, thanks so much for supporting the show over the months, or over the coming months, and of course our features leading into the Indy 500. It's great to be part of the Velocity family during this time, and of course if you're a person that's looking for motorsport news, particularly with a New Zealand tangent, then check out Velocity today and look at their classified section as well. There's an amazing amount of stuff that you can purchase or put up for sale on Velocity, so well and truly support that as they're supporting us as well. So big shout out once again to them. And if you need to know more about what we're just about to talk about, which is local quota, that's certainly the place to go. So looking at things that have happened, particularly in New Zealand since we last spoke, there's been quite a bit on. There was the final round of the Toyota 86 Championship, and Rowan Shepherd making it two-time back-to-back winner in this series. One of the only people to do that. Great performance from Rowan. Went right down to the final race at Hampton Downs just a week or so ago. Also, V8 Utes, the Ryco V8 Ute Series, and Pato O Ward finally getting a championship win. Well done to Wardy. He's been around. He's been a seasoned campaigner for a long time. Very deserving to him as well. Then across the Tasman in V8 Supercar, great performance from Matthew Payne in the Super 2 series, taking out a race win and pole positions and all sorts of things. So certainly a driver on the move. And of course, Shane van Gisbergen back into his winning ways, not necessarily across the board for the weekend, but certainly good performances from Shane. And that's what we're expecting and seeing from him this year. If you want to know more about that, of course, Velocity is the place to check that out. Then back to the domestic front, and of course this week, Wayne Chrissy, the president of Motorsport New Zealand, will announce the winner of the 2021 Academy year, the Motorsport Elite Academy year, and that'll be announced this week, so we'll have details of that for you in our next show. And then also the announcement of the class of 2022 that'll go into camp in Otago through the Otago Academy of Sport and the University of Otago and the Elite Motorsport Academy Trust, and that will happen in July. So we'll have the announcement of the 8 drivers that'll be participating in this year's camp for you in the next show. And then just last week in Christchurch at Ruapuna, the final of the New Zealand Formula Ford title was decided, and it was Alex Crosby that took out the championship. Only 2 rounds this year due to the COVID restrictions that happened earlier on. So one in the north, one in the south, made it very tough going. But in the end, Alex Crosby is the New Zealand Formula Ford champion for 2021-2022 season. And onwards to the Barber Motorsport Park in Birmingham, Alabama. Just a fantastic facility, fantastic museum, one of the world's largest collections of motorcycles, and also one of the largest collections of Lotus racing cars in the world. And it just reminds me of the fact that as I'm doing this, it's 28 years, I should say, to the day that we lost the great Ayrton Senna. Anyway, to Barber Motorsport Park, and first up, USF 2000. 2 Kiwis in that series, Jacob Douglas and Billy Frazer. Billy in good form, a circuit that he liked, and it struggled a little bit in qualifying with the team making a decision to run just 1 set of tyres rather than the 2. But for race 1, he took out a podium position in a 2nd place, and then unfortunately in the 2nd race of the weekend, which was held Sunday morning, and in slightly inclement weather, it wasn't so good, and he ended up finishing further down the field. Jacob Douglas, he was there, he was midfield for both races, and I think that's a good improvement from Jacob. We're seeing more things from him, both of them driving for Exclusive Motorsport, and we'll be catching up with them in just a few weeks' time in Indianapolis, so really looking forward to seeing both those young Kiwis that are making their mark in USF 2000. Going up a couple of notches now to the Indy Lights Series, and another Kiwi, Hunter McElrea, in amongst the mix here. Hunter's having a bit of a mixed bag season, but we're only 2 rounds into this championship, and it's really going to heat up over the coming weeks, that's for sure. Hunter, I think, is with a great team, Andretti Autosport. There's some great benchmarks there with Matthew Brabham as well. That's probably how you could parallel where to put Hunter in this championship, because Matthew Brabham's been all the way to IndyCar, so it's a very good benchmark judgment platform for us, and at the moment I'd say that Hunter has the upper hand over his teammate Matthew Brabham, that's for sure. We had the chance to catch up with Hunter after practice at Barber.
Messy session, honestly. We rolled out a little bit like we didn't expect to, and then I was just exploring a bit of stuff, so ended up 5th, but I'm honestly happy to end up 5th with how messy it was, and there's so much more time in it, in me in the car, so we'll dial it up more, I'll do a better job, we'll get the car better, and then hopefully go stick it on pole.
Well, not quite pole position for Hunter, that's for sure. And again, we have the chance to catch up with him after qualifying at Barber.
Just finished up qualifying. Honestly, a little disappointed. We're 5th, so obviously after getting pole last round on the debut, you expect that of yourself. So just haven't really rolled out of the truck that strong. Lacking that little bit, but we're starting 5th, so it's hard to pass here, but you never know what can happen at turn 1, and I'm just going to keep my best foot forward and try and move forward, hopefully to a podium in the race.
And then to the race for the Indy Lights on Sunday morning, and unfortunately bad weather hit the area. Alabama renowned for this at this time of the year. There was thunder and lightning storms and all sorts of things. But what it did is it presented a wet track for the Indy Lights cars, something that they probably weren't wanting, and all the rubber game from over the weekend was well and truly gone. It was Linguist that took the win. As far as we're concerned with McElrea, unfortunately he made contact with his teammate Brabham, who we'd been praising earlier on, in the closing stages of the race, and that meant a very, more towards the end placing for Hunter, so it's very unfortunate for him. This kid is the real deal, make no mistake of that. Let's not give him a hard time at all. In fact, if anything, let's praise him for what he's doing, like we do for all Kiwis that are competing overseas. It's amazing what they do. Hunter McElrea will rise to the occasion again, and you need to keep following him Indy Lights this year. He's worthy of you following him and taking the time out to follow him. Great young kid. Onwards then to IndyCar, and before we get into the race at Barber, let's just look at a few things that have happened since we last spoke. The 33rd entry for the Indy 500, it now looks very likely that it will happen, and it won't come from Junkos Hollinger Racing as we'd all expected, or all really pretty much thought that they were the only team in the game. It will be a combined effort between Dragon Speed Racing and Cusick Motorsport, which will enable Stefan Wilson to make that 33rd entry. It's not official yet, but it certainly has all the hallmarks of the fact that it'll become official this week. Does it put them on the back foot for the Indy 500 missing the open test? Yes, it does. They'll be there. Will we see a 34th entry? I very much doubt it, but the field is now full, or will become officially full in the coming days, and that's a great thing because Indy is all about tradition, and 33 is the traditional number of starters for the 500. Onwards then to this one, and of course 2008, the year that Dixon won the championship, and I was very lucky to have this helmet with that logo put on it at that time. Little did we know at the time we did that. Now, the qualifying procedure for the 500 this year, it's changed yet again. Gone is the fast 9, we're now a 12 and a 6. So I'm going to go through this. We've got a graphic to help support it because it gets a little bit confusing. So basically how qualifying will work at Indianapolis this year is on Saturday, May 21, we'll see qualifying particularly for positions 13 through 30. Those cars will then get locked in. If there are more than 34 cars, then there's another scenario that comes into hand for that back 3. But at the moment, let's just assume that there's going to be the 33 cars. 12 then go through to Sunday, May 22nd. There'll be a last chance qualifying, again, if the field is over 33, and someone will get bumped out. If the field stays at 33, that's pretty much going to go out the door, and we know what the back row is. Then there's top 12 qualifying, so positions 7 to 12 will be determined. This is the order based on the Saturday times, the slowest to the fastest. Each entry will be guaranteed 1 attempt, and the fastest 6 will then advance through the Firestone Fast 6 to determine the grid positions 1 through 6. So very different to how we've seen in the past. Then, at about 5 o'clock local time, again on the Sunday, May 22nd, positions 1 to 6 will be determined. Each entry again gets 1 attempt, and the fastest driver then will earn the P1 position. I cannot clarify whether or not there's still the 100k up for grabs for pole. Let's assume there is, because I doubt whether that would disappear. What it does mean, however, if you make that fast 12, you're effectively putting your car at risk several times to then go in the hunt for pole position at Indy. There's absolutely no doubt that it'll be dramatic. I don't know whether or not we necessarily need it around Indianapolis Motor Speedway, because again, if you put your car in the fence and you're in that top 12, your chances of recovery become just that much harder. What was a session that was called off for the Monday is now back. There's a 2-hour session on the Mondays because of the way this whole Fast 6, Fast 12 thing is going to work. So on Monday there's a 2-hour session following that for the cars to be run in race spec, and that enables those, or doesn't disadvantage those that made the Fast 12. So at least there's a little bit of track time for them then. But that's your only chance of recovery if something goes wrong before you hit carb day, which will be a 2-hour session on the Friday afternoon, and then race day the following Sunday. So it's all to play for at Indy. It's glory for pole position, but glory does not mean that you win the 500. And so to Barber Motorsport Park for the 4th round of the NTT IndyCar Championship for 2022. Practice was held on Friday, and one of the people that we're expecting to see a bit of form from really was Kiwi Scott Dixon. And again, we had the chance to talk to Scott straight after practice.
Yeah, decent first session. Ended up having traffic on the first run and pitting. Went out and actually ran quicker on the second run, which is a good sign. We weren't too far off, and I think we definitely could have been in the top 2 or 3 had we had a clear run on the first one. So starting the day pretty good. Car's comfortable to drive. Test I think was definitely helped us here as a group. So hopefully we can have some fast cars and end the right way.
And of course, one of the things that we all have to remember is that in every season that Scott Dixon has competed in the NTT IndyCar Series, he has won at least one race. Now, you know, people might be saying, oh, he's not in good form right now, but just think about that stat for a minute. Every single season he's won at least one race, and I would expect that there'll be at least one race again this year. Maybe it'll be at the end of the month at May. You just never know. Onwards to qualifying, and the other Scott from New Zealand, McLaughlin, had a great performance and ended up finishing 4th in qualifying.
Ended day 2 at Barber. We start P4 for the Barber Grand Prix here in Alabama. It's obviously a good moment for me to make the Fast 6 again. It's our 2nd for the year, and after our front row start at Texas, we're having a pretty good year qualifying wise. So I feel strong. Car's got a really good pace, and if we can have a decent day tomorrow with strategy, and hopefully it stays dry, because it's going to be an interesting day if it's wet. But we'll see how we go, and I'm excited for what we've got.
McLaughlin having the upper hand over Dixon when it came to qualifying, with Dixon only qualifying midfield. Not really what we expected from Dixon, certainly not what he was thinking qualifying. He's making life hard for himself over these recent races, and that's certainly an area where Ganassi and Dixon need to improve this season anyway. Onwards to the race, well, by then the weather had cleared, so the track conditions were pretty much near perfect at Barber, clear blue skies. It was a fantastic event. Really, as the way I saw it, is this race came down to the last third of the race. That last pit stop is where it all changed. Rinus VeeKay had led the entire race. A slow out lap. Pato O Ward took advantage of that and took the lead, and then held the lead all the way to the end, which was a great form for Pato, probably something he needed, and it made his 3rd race win in the IndyCar Series. What it did though is it created all sorts of battles that were happening further back. Dixon on the rise. There was a lot of strategy going on there. McLaughlin went backwards as a result of some things that happened there as well. So it became a mixed bag. And as I said, I think that the race was decided, the entire race was decided in that last third of the race. It also stressed just what pit stops can do to a race, both from a crew point of view and from a driver point of view. And Rinus VeeKay was a classic example of that. If you don't push on that out lap or that in lap, you lose time, and Pato O Ward was there to take advantage of that. Two-time IndyCar champion Joseph Newgarden, who was also the points leader going into the race, dropped to 3rd in the standings after today because of the fact that he ended up finishing 14th. So not a great result for Newgarden. Of course, this was the scene of his accident on round 1 last year, so maybe this has become a little bit of a hoodoo track. McLaughlin and Power ended up ultimately being the best of the Penske cars. But really, at the end of the day, this race at Barber came down to a strategy, and it all really started when Callum Ilott spun on lap 32 at turn 9 of the race, and then it triggered a chain of events that altered race strategy and affected the strategy from there. Nearly every driver pitted just before or after Ilott's incident, with VeeKay leading O Ward, McLaughlin, Palou and Rossi at that stage when the restart happened on lap 35. But that last third of the race was also critical, and that's where VeeKay ultimately lost the race to O Ward. One of the things I did find interesting, however, was the post-race press conference with Pato O Ward being accompanied by Taylor Keel from the Aaron McLaren SP outfit. And it was just interesting the fact that it's not often that you see, using Formula One speak, a team principal turn up at these press conferences. And I kind of almost got the impression that he was there to keep a little bit of an eye on Pato It certainly changed Pato's persona, if you like, for a little bit during the press conference, and it was also interesting to hear a quote from Pato saying, "It sucks to be at war within your own team. I'm glad there have been positive talks about the future. I wanted to do this win today for all those guys at Arrow McLaren SP. I'm tired of being 10th and 11th and 5th, so let's go for a win and get it under our belts and get back into the championship fight." And that's exactly what he did. So I think there's some internal politics at play there, and it was a rather interesting press conference. And we'll start out with Pato O Ward.
I think a top 5 finish in this series is pretty stellar because it's so competitive and there's so many factors that have to go right in order to be up there. So I just think this weekend was the perfect weekend to do it. I love this place. We had a great car here. No reason why we wouldn't have had a good car here this weekend, which we just proved that we were the guy to beat. We missed it just by a little bit in qualifying, but I knew I had the pace. I knew the car had the pace, and it was just kind of playing a bit of a waiting game because these races are so long where it's not a sprint race. If we would have started and it's 30 or 40 laps, then you maybe approach it a bit different, but it's 90 laps. So it's so long. So I wasn't really stressing. I was just managing my fuel, my tires, and just taking care of everything. And whenever the opportunity would come to us, I was sure to be ready to take advantage of it.
Great job by Pato, and regardless of any of the comments I made earlier, the end of the day is he won the race, and it's as simple as that. That's what motor racing is all about, and as a team they executed exactly what they needed to do. Another person that's executed exactly what they needed to do and now takes over the points lead is Alex Player. Got the chance to hear from him after the race.
Alright guys, job done here at Barber. We hunted some trophies, some champagne, so super happy. The number 10 American Legion car was really good. Honda gave us the mileage we needed today to make it into a 2-stopper, and it was a solid weekend overall for us, for me especially. So super happy. We tried to get that top spot, but we were just missing a little bit. So heading into month of May with a lot of momentum, a lot of confidence and good cars, so cannot wait.
Well, in our regular Racing World roundup of drivers, after the race we also got to talk to Kiwi Scott Dixon. He was kind of in the hunt. He made some big inroads from where he started, and that was an important thing. And as I've said, you can never rule Dixon out of this. There's a lot of people still talking about the young guns in the series, and certainly the top 3 today are that next generation of driver. But then you look at it and you look at the moves from Pagenaud, Power and Dixon himself, and there was some big inroads made by those guys. So anyone who ever underestimates them is really buying themselves a big problem.
Yeah, I think for the PNC Bank Honda, if we start a little further up, it would make our days a lot easier. But we had great pace. I think the only issue we had today was, we had a bit of fumble on our pit stop, and then we kind of tuned the car too much for the reds on the first 2 stints. And once I got to that last stint on the blacks, I was so loose. I was holding on from lap 1. So thankfully we held on to it, gave up a spot to Power there that was on reds. But we've got to start further up, man. It's just these mistakes that we're making in qualifying. It's just not acceptable when it's making race much harder.
A couple of spots behind Dixon was the leading Andretti Autosport entry of Romain Grosjean. Now, post-race I've heard, I can't confirm it, I've only heard it, but there was a little bit of a war of words between him and Graham Rahal. Look, at the end of the day, racing's racing, tempers flare, all those sorts of things. It's not necessarily what the sport always needs, but they're both hard, fast, competitive drivers and both really nice guys. But it's great to see Grosjean leading the Andretti squad, proving that he is worthy of being in this championship, and the championship is worthy of having him.
Yeah, pretty good day out there. The car was fast. We think we picked the wrong strategy today. The 3-stop didn't really work. We finished best of the 3-stop, but just didn't pretty right work. But the car was good. We had some good passes. Yellow came at the wrong time. I think we were one of the fastest, but we just couldn't go for the win.
Spot further back in 9th position, Alexander Rossi, just behind his teammate Grosjean and just ahead of his other teammate, that of Colton Herta. Rossi had a bit of a mixed bag weekend again as well. Big shunt in practice, which only just got him into qualifying, so it was a bit of a hard ask. And I'm still just slightly sceptical of this rumour of whether or not Rossi will retain his seat or want to be at Andretti Autosport. in 2023. I think it's starting to gain a bit of momentum, and there was another little rumour circulating, which I don't know whether it's got any weight to it, but Aaron McLaren SP saying that they'd be quite happy to run 3 cars for a season next year. So if you join the dots, that's probably a likely place for where Rossi may, and I say may, go, should any of this actually be true or not. But we'll try and find out more about that when we get to Indianapolis. But yeah, a great performance from Rossi.
Started 5th, we were 5th, 4th for most of the race, and then finished 8th. I think the 3-stop was good. Some guys made the 2-stop work. I don't really understand why we lost so many spots, but there we go. Another missed opportunity.
Then rounding out the top 10 and the third of the Andretti drivers in here, Colton Herta. Now, I just think that maybe we need to control some of this enthusiasm at times, because we're starting to see a few unforced errors, and we saw a little bit of that again today, as we had at previous rounds at Long Beach as well. But, you know, this guy's quick. There's no doubt about it. He's on the radar of the McLaren Formula One team. There's all sorts of scenarios surrounding, you know, Herta's future, but ultimately it was a top 10 result for him today.
I was happy with the car. The car was really fast, and the car was really fast, and my car was really fast as well. So that's enticing.
I know you have all the faith in the world in your guys and the calls that get made and things like that. Where are you at mentally just with the strategy calls and the things that you guys have done this weekend and other races throughout the year too, as we get ready to head to the month of May?
It wasn't a strategy call. The 3-stop was going to work. We were going to beat all the 2-stoppers that we were running, but the part that screwed us was Palou going off and caused the yellow. So unfortunately, these things kind of happen when you do the 3-stop or 6-stop out. You can predict a little bit more, but starting time ready to go for something outside the box.
One spot behind Colton was the very likeable Frenchman, Simon Pagenaud. Now, I got to talk to him several years ago when I was in Indy, and I really like this guy. He's well-spoken, well-mannered, very passionate about the sport, and him and Elio are a great combination at Shank Racing. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And in 11th position today, big move through the field for him. I think it was all in all a great result for Simon.
Great day at the office, I would say. I was hoping for some rain, and turned out to be sunny, and we made a lot of great moves during the race, starting really far back with issues, red flag in qualifying, so we didn't put a lap down, and in the end we marched our way forwards, had a really good car in the race, saved the tires well. Great strategy from Mike Shank, the entire MSR team, and P11 in the end. I'm just very satisfied with how everything went and how everyone performed in general as a group. It's really showing a lot of momentum. Obviously, we want to be P1 in the end, but we have to be patient and reasonable. And I think it was a great day for the entire team, and showed a lot of spirit. So I'm really excited. It was also, I just want to say personally, this would have been my grandpa's 100th birthday today, so I have a good thoughts for him all day today.
And then just wrapping up our roundup of drivers here, the person, of course, that brought out that first yellow, Callum Ilott. We've seen him race in New Zealand and Toyota Racing Series. He's been to Europe. I think that we're going to see some probably quite interesting things out of him come the month of May, or the balance of the month of May, around the oval at IMS. He was very, very quick there in the open test. But, like any driver, they're all open to making mistakes, and today just wasn't one of those days for Callum Ilott.
Don't really know what to say about that one. We're having a great race, great start. I moved up 3 positions to P8. It was them running well. Did the pit stop, came back out in the pack, and just pushed slightly too hard, trying to defend from Helio on the cold tyres and heavy fuel, and just ran slightly wide, and then I was just a passenger and lost it, unfortunately. So bit of a shame to end the weekend like that, or a big shame to end the weekend like that. I feel sorry for myself, for the team, who put on such a good car this weekend. Bit of a hard one, unfortunately. We'll take the positives. It was overall a great weekend up until that point. We had lots of pace, lots more than normal. So hopefully we can continue that momentum into Indy GP and see what we can do. So see you next time.
So when it was all said and done after the 4th round of the NTT IndyCar Series, Alex Palou now is the points leader on 144 points. McLaughlin's still second on 141. Newgarden drops from that first position down to third with 135 points. Will Power's teammate only 1 point behind him, so that's all 3 Penske cars. Then Pato O Ward after the win today, Dixon in 6th on 113, Renus BK on 106, Romain Grosjean, the leading Andretti Autosport car, on 101 points. Marcus Ericsson, Dixon's teammate, in 9th, and then Rahal rounds out the top 10. So it's a bit of a mixed bag within there. Don't forget, of course, those evil double points at Indy. Still not a fan of them, but at the moment, that's the way it's sitting, and we're only 4 rounds in of the 17, so there is a long, long way to go. There's been a lot of talk of engine manufacturers and whether Honda's down on Chevy. Well, bottom line fact is it's a Honda that's now leading the championship, so I think that's enough on that matter. Next up for the teams, of course, is the IMS Road Course on a Saturday afternoon rather than a Sunday race, and then on the Tuesday, the first practice day for the 106th running of the Indy 500 presented by Gamebridge. So it's certainly going to be a very, very busy month of May, and then it just doesn't stop after that. And this is where we decide championships, because it's relentless on teams and drivers with Belle Isle and so on and so on and so on. It does not peak at Indy. They just must make that clear. Indy is only a round of the championship. It just happens to be an all-important round. So on Racing World, of course, next week we'll be back with a chat on the Miami Grand Prix, the first Grand Prix to be held in Florida. I think it's going to be a great event. There's some interesting corners there. We have to see a resurgence from Carlos Sainz in this Ferrari battle, otherwise it's definitely going to be upper hand to Charles Leclerc. Will we see Mercedes bounce back? They're talking about car developments and add-on and parts and bits and pieces for the Mercedes. It's kind of do or die time in many ways, even though Lewis keeps downplaying this championship. You can guarantee that behind closed doors they're working out a way to get back in there. Or will it be the continued dominance maybe of Red Bull? There's a lot to play for, and Miami, it just looks absolutely amazing, very fast, some interesting corners. So we'll have a chat about that next week. And then after then, of course, it's the rest of the balance of the month of May, and we'll be on our way to Indy. We've lined up all sorts of things for you. There'll be almost daily shows at some stage, so there's plenty coming. And of course, don't forget you can check it out on Velocity as well. So it's velocitynews.co.nz for that motorsport news. Well, until next week when we talk about Miami and the very first Grand Prix held there, I think it's going to really rock that event. I really do. Such a busy month of motorsport in the States, really, when you consider that it's dovetailing with Indy 500 and the ongoing NASCAR series, but it's all about Miami next week, and then it's all about IndyCar. GMR Grand Prix on the IMS Road Course, and then that 106th running of the Indy 500. So don't forget, join us again next week for another edition of Racing World. In the meantime, share, like, because I really get a lot of satisfaction from that, and subscribe to Racing World, because we're not going away and we want to deliver for you. So don't forget, comment if there's something you want to know, particularly leading up to the Indy 500. Now's your chance to email us, drop us a line in the comment section below and let us know, because we will follow up those questions for you the best we can at Indy in just a few weeks from now. But until then, stay safe out there. Remember COVID, it's still around, but above all, enjoy your motorsport. Thanks for watching Racing World.